everybody. It's me, Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie. On this episode of CD Junkie, I'm going to be talking about one of the finest female vocalists of our generation. She's a British vocalist, best known as the front person for synth pop duo Yazoo, plus a fantastic solo career. That's right, I'm talking about ALISON MOYET. I always like to start these episodes off by telling you how I get into the artist, and that's basically because I was a big Depeche Mode fan, and their first album, Speak and Spell, Vince Clarke, the main songwriter, left the band, and he went off and he formed a duo named Yazoo with vocalist ALISON MOYET, and they released their debut album, Upstairs at Eric's, in 1982. Now, of course, I loved the singles, bought the album, loved the album, and I've followed her as a vocalist ever since. But I'm going to go through this catalog real fast. I have a 5-minute medley filled with just short excerpts of 25 Yazoo and ALISON MOYET tracks. So I'm going to whiz by this. I'm probably going to forget to tell you that she was nominated for a Grammy and she's had all these accolades and she's won awards and all that fun stuff. I'm just going to talk about the particular albums, beginning with Upstairs at Eric's. This was very much an extension of Depeche Mode's Speak and Spell. Very poppy, upbeat, cool little synth riffs from Vince Clarke, and ALISON MOYET's vocals blew everybody away. You see, back in the late 70s, early 80s, the rock fans considered synth pop to be, cold, clinical, manufactured, no emotion. But, artists were definitely proving that there was emotion in it. And when you have a synth pop duo fronted by someone like ALISON MOYET with this wonderful bluesy jazz pop voice that just seemed to fill the room with power and emotion, this is one of the breakthrough artists that really showed you can do more than just create dancey, silly pop songs. And of course, I don't consider synth pop to be dancey or silly. I love it. But anyway, this is an album, like I said, came out in 1982, has the ballad Only You. It also has Don't Go, which was a hit, and Midnight, fantastic, Bad Connection. So many great pop songs. It's also experimental, and it takes chances and risks, and really a lot of great tracks on this. Now, there was a legal issue, so the band had to change their name to Yaz in America, and what they did is they took the song Tuesday, which is buried on side 2, and they replaced it with a B-side called Situation, which became a huge dance hit in America. It's one of their best songs. I cannot believe that it ended up as a B-side. So they're very successful with that album. In 1983, out comes their second album called You and Me Both. I think it's a really, really good album, not as great as the first album. They're treading a lot of the same ground, but there's a lot of great songs on it. So it's not a huge step forward musically, but song-wise, it's fantastic. Like Nobody's Diary is great. Mr. Blue, Walk Away from Love, Anyone. Happy People shows that Vince Clarke could actually sing on songs. I wish he had done that more. But after this album, Yazoo broke up. Vince Clarke went off and formed The Assembly for a single, and then he did a single, I believe, with Paul Quinn from the group Borgie Borgie, and then he formed Erasure. And of course, Erasure is still an ongoing band even today, almost 40 years later. Now, both of those albums were included in a box set along with a bunch of remixes and BBC sessions and stuff. You can also buy this called 3 Pieces, and it contains both albums. Now, of course, it's the UK version, so Situation's not on Upstairs at Eric's, but it also has BBC and modern remixes. And that was it for Yazoo. In 1984, ALISON MOYET returned with Alf, a wonderful album produced by Steve Jolly and Tony Swain, who had also produced Spandau Ballet's True. They produced Bananarama. They produced Imagination, lots of great little pop records that they did. This is the deluxe edition. This contains the songs Love Resurrection, which is incredible, absolutely astounding single, amazing. It also contains one of her biggest hits in the US, a song called Invisible, that was written by Lamont Dozier from Holland Dozier Holland, and that is here. And as you can tell, it has a bunch of bonus tracks featuring non-album tracks, remixes, live, whatever you want, it's there. 2 CD set, Alf, ALISON MOYET, 1984. She followed that up 3 years later with the album Rain Dancing. This was produced by Jimmy Iovine, and this has a cover version of like Weak at the Presence of Beauty, which is a Floyd Joy song, and this is the expanded edition with additional tracks, remixes, B-sides, etc., etc. Other great songs on here include, there's a song called Is This Love, which was co-written by Dave Stewart from the Eurythmics, and ALISON MOYET has a voice not dissimilar or similar to Annie Lennox. So if you like that really strong voice with, heavy R&B, soul, jazz influences like Annie Lennox, you're going to love Alison Moyet. This is, I think, an equal album to Alf. The album didn't do as well here in America, but I think that it's jam-packed with some great, great songs. Now, she started having label issues and such around this time, I believe, but in 1991, she released the album Hoodoo. Now, some of the songs in this album have more of a baggy Manchester dance feel to it. She was staying modern. It was probably at the request of her record label, because that's always the situation. And this album is more bluesy. For me, for a pop kid, listening to songs that are more blues influenced, those aren't going to appeal to me right away, so they'll take a few listens. But there are some great pop songs in this. Another great thing about this album is it's the first of her albums, first of many, to feature musical collaboration with guitarist Pete Glenister. Now, I'm a huge fan of this band called the Hitmen that came out in the late 70s, early 80s. They had 2 albums out on Columbia or Sony, and they were incredible. So Pete Glenister then went on, and he worked with people like Brian Ferry, Kirsty MacColl on many of her albums in the 90s. He even worked on the first Bruce Foxton solo album, Bruce Foxton from The Jam. But anyway, Hoodoo has some great songs. In fact, she was nominated for a Grammy, I believe, for It Won't Be Long on there, but lots of great, great songs. There's a song in here called My Right Arm, which sounds very much like sort of latter period Depeche Mode. Not that that's what she was trying, but it has that darker feel, electronic feel. Like I said, it's more blues oriented. I mean, let's put it this way. She's an amazing vocalist, whatever she does. So I'm going to listen to all the blues oriented tracks because of her vocal performance. It's just incredible. So, just that alone draws me in to those recordings. And like I said, that's the expanded edition. In 1994, she returned with Essex, which about half the albums were produced by Ian Brody from the Lightning Seeds, and the other half was produced by Pete Glenister. Lots of great songs on there. It's just a great return to form in terms of pop songs. There's a song on here called Whispering Your Name, which was written by Jules Shear, and he had recorded it previously solo. And there's also a track called So Am I, which was co-written by Ian Brody. Lots of the songs were co-written with Pete Glenister, but lots of great pop songs on this. Melodic. It's not as bluesy as Hoodoo was, and it's incredible, wonderful pop album. Deserved a lot more attention. You should definitely track it down. Troubles with her record label kept her out of the studio for 8 years, but after that was all settled, she signed with a new label and returned in 2002 with the album Home Time. Still a wonderful, fantastic, amazing vocalist. This album is more mellow, and a lot of great songs written with Pete Glenister, and one of her greatest songs called Should I Feel That It's Over is on this. Just a wonderful album. Like I said, more mellow, more thought-provoking, but still enthralling because of Alison Moyet's voice. Speaking of voice, in 2004 she put out an album called Voice, which was produced by Ann Dudley, and it's all cover versions. So she does songs like Windmills of Your Mind. She does Almost Blue, which was an Elvis Costello penned song. She also does God Give Me Strength, which Elvis Costello wrote with Burt Bacharach. Lots of classic songs on here. Lush, beautiful, mostly piano or acoustic guitar with, strings and stuff in the background. And it's really wonderful, really emotional. And, of course, Alison Moyet is the voice. In 2007, she put out The Turn, which is her returning to a lot of self-penned tracks with Pete Glenister, and lots of great material on this. It's, again, more of a mellow album. There are upbeat moments, but it's really, I love albums that focus on the song, focus on the singer, and so many great things. But let me tell you one thing about this. She has written or co-written many great classics, but there's a song on here called The Man in the Wings. First time I heard it many years ago, I thought that it was like a classic Broadway song or an American songbook song. First time I heard it. And it is, bar none, sorry for my French, a stone cold fucking classic. It's called The Man in the Wings. It's a wonderful, beautiful ballad. And that's just part of this album. So many great songs on it. She's totally maturing as an artist, as a singer, as a songwriter. fantastic. Even do a search for The Man in the Wings by Alison Moyet, and you'll hear that song is really a modern classic. And no, it's not about Paul McCartney. It's just called The Man in the Wings. It took another 6 years before she put out another album. But the problem was the press was saying, oh, she's returning to electronic music. And a lot of the fans and everybody was saying, oh, she's going to go synth pop like Yaz or Yazoo. The thing is no, she was returning to more of an electronic sound, but it was, more, for 2013, it was like modern electronica. It wasn't, going back to her synth pop roots. But The Minutes is the first album that came out, and the album was produced and co-written with Guy Sigsworth. It's very electronic. Now, the only thing that I'm a little bit disappointed about is with such a great vocalist, on some of the songs they use that modern technology where they auto-tuned her voice, not to fix anything, but just sort of blend into to that electronic sound. And it takes away the power of her voice a little bit. But on most of the songs, you don't have to worry about that. The Minutes, Horizon Flame's great, Apple Kisses, Right as Rain, Changeling, Love Reigns Supreme, lots of great songs on that album. And then finally, her most recent studio album is called Other. Came out in 2017, continues with the electronic sound, but actually it sort of pulls away a little bit from that auto-tune type sound that was in some of these songs. It's still there somewhere, but it's focusing more, and sounding more like an Alison Moyet album as opposed to an Alison Moyet electronic album, even though it's electronic. Anyway, some great songs on there, including I Germinate and The Rarest Birds and Let Her Go, The English You, the title track. Lots of great things on there. But that was the last studio album that she's released. But of course, Alison Moyet sometimes takes 4, 5, 6 years in between albums. And they're always worth the wait. But there's many, many different compilations out there. Essential Alison Moyet, the singles. This is the one that I have here. And this contains a bonus disc featuring some in the studio live sort of reinterpretations, re-recordings on disc 2. But that's a great solid collection there. She's released some non-album A-sides throughout her career, like That Old Devil Called Love, First Time Ever I Saw Your Face. And those are bonus tracks on there, but you can also find them on many of the compilations as well. So any of the Alison Moyet compilations are pretty much well-rounded, and you should be able to, get an idea of where to start your collection if that's your first choice as an Alison Moyet release. Anyway, that is it. I appreciate you allowing me to talk about Alison Moyet and sitting there, and let me know if you're a fan of Alison Moyet, if you're interested in Alison Moyet. Let me know in the comments below. Please remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, to ring that bell for future notifications. And until the next time, remember me. I'm Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie.